much, everyone. Okay, we're on to our final speaker. But before we move on to our final speaker, I would like to thank the organizers of this event. Can we give everyone a big round of applause? This was fantastic. Thank you for hosting. Okay, so our last speaker, I know, has been an inspiration to many of us in this room for very many reasons. He has been a youth worker in his life before he was an elected official, and he was elected to the Toronto City Council in the by-election last February. He happens to be the first Tamil Canadian to serve on City Council in Toronto, and he successfully introduced a motion to make January 29th the annual day of remembrance and action against Islamophobia. I'm very honored to welcome Ethan Shan to the stage.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, sisters and brothers. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak. And I'm delighted to be here for many reasons. First, the potential of this riding becoming an NDP riding just got the chances got much higher once we nominated Doly as the candidate. So the party is very fortunate to have Doly as the candidate. You know, Doly's speech. Yesterday we saw that a lot of the mainstream media were just waiting around for content and killing airtime. This is the kind of speech that needs to be on mainstream TV, where she can inspire a lot of people out there. And sometimes we don't get the airspace for people like Doly, and that's why we have to do the grassroots mobilizing and the organizing that we need to do to get the fabulous candidate she is. She's passionate. One of the reasons I wanted to, I know most of the speakers took a different angles, and many of them I agree because they are my friends and we think along the same line as progressive pushing for social and economic justice. But I want to take a different angle today. I was the first Tamil Canadian to be elected along with another councillor in all of Canada in 2006. And I'm telling you this because that changed how the community engaged with politics. Today, after about 12 years, we have MPs, we have party president, we have school board trustees. So what we are doing here is not just about electing Doly for the Bangladeshi community to have somebody superb to represent. This is going to change the kind of level of engagement and the kind of representation. I know the Bangladeshi community has been working so hard for many awesome candidates and sometimes not so awesome candidates knocking on doors and asking to elect some other people who are, I would do that for Janet Davis, she's fabulous, but there are other people who have taken us for granted when we knock on doors and when they ask you to do the science, when they ask you for literature. For the first time, the community can take full ownership. Here is a daughter from the Bangladeshi community who not only understands the younger generation and what's best in our youth, but also understands the struggle of our elders. It is very, very important to have a candidate who has that balance, who doesn't just look at only the generation that is coming up, but understands the sacrifices the older generation made. So to have a candidate from your community who understands those two struggles and can bridge that gap even within the community is the rarity, and so we have to work hard to make sure Doly wins this election. Because there are people who would blame the younger generation for something, there are people who would blame the younger generation, but here is the person who understands the strength of both. One more thing. We have people within our own communities who are fabulously recognized in our own communities for the great work and loved by our own communities, but they don't have the kind of same recognition in the social justice and economic justice movement that is considered mainstream, for example, the labor movement. But here is a candidate who's loved by the Bangladeshi community, equally loved by the labor community in the progressive circles in the mainstream, which actually does not have enough linkage, unfortunately. And so electing her is going to bridge us together and make both of our causes stronger. So we have a lot at stake, so let's work together to elect her. So I have to say, when I ran, she asked me to talk a little bit about it. The community that lives in Scarborough Southwest was important. But the Bangladeshi community has a rare chance to break through and have the first person from the community elected to politics. And what better way to do that than to elect a Bangladeshi woman and set an example when other communities are struggling to have gender representation. Your first one happens to be a woman, a young woman, a racialized woman, a progressive woman. And that sends signals to all communities to be focusing on women, progressive women, young women, to be taking them as the leadership candidates to put forward. You know, just last month we celebrated the International Mother Language Day. The inspiration the Bangladeshi community has given to all communities that are trying to protect their mother languages is an example of what can happen from the community, from organization. So here is an example where if we all help elect Doly, she's going to inspire not just the Bangladeshi women, all racialized women all across the GTA, all across the country, to be able to aspire to be in positions of power. And more importantly, you know, when we get to Queen's Park, we want somebody who doesn't disassociate from the community, who is grounded with the reality. We have some representation who are from racialized communities at Queen's Park and at City Hall too. And some of them do not really speak for the challenges some of our communities are going through. They shy away from talking about those challenges because they feel like if they start talking more about the people they look like or who they think that, you know, that might lead to, you know, other people not letting them have access power. But Doly is different. I know as an executive director of CAS, I saw the resumes of Bangladeshi Canadians who were filled with so much credentials that was not being recognized by this province. It's a shame that many internationally trained professionals from the Bangladesh community are underemployed in our province. And that can change if we elect Doly to be in a place where she can change that. International recognition of international credential is the racist issue. It's an issue of importance of human rights, and not just about who is qualified and who is not qualified. If we can change those things, if you need to change those things, not the lip service of the Liberal government that have been saying it for a long time, it is the NDP progressive people who will elect people like Doly who can take their lived experience and make sure that change is happening in those spaces. So I'm delighted to be here. So I'm asking all of you, I had seniors who came from Mississauga, I had seniors who came from different parts to make phone calls. So the Bangladeshi community needs to organize across the province, in fact, to bring across the GTA, to bring people to come here, to make sure that this historic moment is not lost. This is a perfect opportunity for this riding. This has a strong base of NDP support already there to begin with the engagement of all of you, with the engagement that, with the kind of caliber of candidate Doly is, we are definitely poised to make history here. And it's a time that we can all celebrate together after the election. There's a lot to celebrate, a lot of work to do, but I'm hoping that I can do enough from my share of, you know, sending volunteers, being here, working with Doly, because I see her election is not just important to Doly or the Bangladeshi community or Scarborough Southwest. As a Tamil Canadian, a lot of my struggles are tied into wanting to have Doly elected, because I know when she gets there, a lot of my sisters and mothers who have been discriminated because of their gender and racialization will be well represented by somebody like Doly. So thank you very much for listening to me.